My name is Blair Ruble, and I'm director of the Kennan Institute in Washington. And one of the ways in which the Kennan Institute is different from a number of so-called Russian affairs think tanks is that we really put culture at the center of our analysis. We believe that it's impossible to understand Russia without understanding Russian cultural achievement, which is clearly has been for a long time at the height of world cultural achievement. And we're particularly taken in recent years with a dynamism in Russian music and theater, in literature, with the adaptability of Russian culture to new forms of social media, the impact of Facebook and other forms, and it seems to us that it's in the cultural sphere that there's a dynamism in Russia that comes to the fore, which isn't always visible if you approach Russia through politics or through even through economics. So we're very interested in what's going on here culturally. It's an area in which Russia stands without question on par with everyone else in the world. It also is an area where I think you have a window on how Russians think about the world and adapt to the world. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have this dimension to our programming, and we don't just focus on the politics of the day.
Have you had any writers come to the Kennan Center recently?
We haven't had too many writers recently, but historically we've had Vasily Aksionov was in residence, Vladimir Voinovich was in residence, a number of other writers, particularly about 10-20 years ago, would come and use it as an opportunity to write. That's been less possible in recent years, but it's, I think, a very important dimension of what we've done.
You're working on this book on urban centers in Russia.
Yeah,
Tell me something about that.
I'm an urbanist, and I've written a lot about Russian cities, but most recently I wrote a book about Washington, D.C., which raised for me a whole set of questions about how the urban environment encourages the performing arts as a means of expression and defining space. And I want to take the questions that were raised by my work on Washington and apply them to Russian cities. Why do certain art forms emerge from certain places? How do the arts reflect the dynamism of the place? And you see that sometimes, obviously, in a place like Moscow, that's an international cultural center, but also in places like Yekaterinburg, where perhaps the cultural achievement is greater than one might assume, just sort of looking at a map. And I think it has to do with how human beings come to terms with their environment, and various performing arts is a way of giving definition and meaning to life. But particularly as an urbanist, I want to look at how the urban dimension of life shapes what's coming out in performing arts.
We were just talking, and you mentioned the fact that Yekaterinburg has a history of tolerance for immigrants, and actually they work a lot to bring people, apparently, or at least make them feel at home when they do come. Right. That's an interesting thing. I did not know that. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, historically, Yekaterinburg has been a place where people have moved to from different parts of Russia, and in the post-Soviet period it's been a major center of immigration to Russia, and the local administration has been very welcoming in Russian context, very welcoming of immigrants, because it adds, immigrants add a new dynamism to the local economy and workers, and there are about 200,000 Tajiks living in Yekaterinburg, and without Yekaterinburg is still one of the growing cities in Russia, and immigration has been a critical, important part of that growth and that dynamism. So I think a place like Yekaterinburg is also interesting because the arts help define a much more complicated place than perhaps it's been in the past.